My name is Anna, and I'm 33 years old. I've been a nurse for over a decade, and I take pride in my work. There's something deeply fulfilling about helping people during their most vulnerable moments. My job is demanding, long shifts, sleepless nights, and the constant pressure to be at my best. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's who I am. Before last year, my life was simple. I lived alone in a small apartment near the hospital. My days revolved around work, and my nights were spent recovering from the exhaustion of caring for others. I didn't have a boyfriend or many friends outside of work. My social life was practically non-existent, but I didn't mind. I had my mom, who lived in a quiet village about an hour away. I visited her often, helping her with chores and enjoying her homemade meals. Life was predictable, and I was content. But then, everything changed. It started when a new doctor joined our hospital. His name was Michael, and he was 31 years old, 2 years younger than me. He was tall, with messy brown hair and piercing blue eyes that seemed to see right through you. He had this easygoing charm that made everyone around him feel at ease. The nurses adored him, and even the patients seemed to perk up when he walked into the room. At first, I didn't think much of him. Sure, he was handsome and kind, but I wasn't the type to daydream about romance. I'm not what you'd call glamorous. I'm average-looking, with short, practical hair and a wardrobe that consists mostly of scrubs. I didn't think someone like Michael would even notice me, but he did. It started with small gestures. He'd smile at me in the hallway, ask how my day was going, or bring me a cup of coffee during my break. At first, I thought he was just being friendly. But then, one evening, after a particularly grueling shift, he offered to drive me home. I was too tired to refuse. That car ride changed everything. We talked the entire way about work, our families, and our dreams. Michael was easy to talk to, and for the first time in years, I felt seen. He told me about his love for hiking and how he'd always wanted to travel the world. I shared my passion for reading and my secret dream of writing a novel someday. By the time we reached my apartment, I realized I hadn't felt this alive in a long time. After that, Michael and I grew closer. He'd drive me home after our shifts, and we'd sit in the hospital cafeteria during lunch, talking for hours. He made me laugh in a way no one else could, and I found myself looking forward to seeing him every day. I tried to convince myself it was just a friendship, but deep down, I knew I was falling for him. Then, one weekend, he asked me out, not as coworkers or friends, but as something more. We went to the movies, and afterward, we walked through the park, talking until the stars came out. It was perfect until it wasn't. A few days later, Michael dropped a bombshell. "Anna, I need to tell you something," he said, his voice serious. "I'm married." I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. Married? How could he be married? He never wore a wedding ring, and he'd never mentioned a wife. My mind raced as he explained. His wife's name was Laura. They'd been married for 5 years, but their relationship had grown distant. They didn't have children, and they rarely spent time together. Michael admitted he wasn't happy, but he didn't know what to do. "I feel alive when I'm with you, Anna," he said. "You make me happy in a way I haven't been in years." I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to believe him, to believe that what we had was real, but another part of me felt sick with guilt. I didn't want to be the other woman. I didn't want to be the reason someone's marriage fell apart. A few days later, I saw them together. I was at the supermarket, picking up groceries after work, when I heard his voice. I turned the corner and there he was, with Laura. She was stunning, tall, elegant, with long blonde hair and a smile that could light up a room. They looked happy, laughing as they picked out produce. I felt like an intruder, watching a scene I wasn't meant to see. I left the store without saying a word, my heart heavy with confusion. Why was Michael spending time with me if he had a wife like Laura? She was everything I wasn't, beautiful, confident, and seemingly perfect. I couldn't understand what he saw in me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed every conversation, every moment we'd shared, trying to make sense of it all. I knew I had to talk to him, but I didn't know what to say. The next day at work, I found him in the break room. "Michael, we need to talk," I said, my voice trembling. "I saw you at the supermarket with your wife. You looked happy. I don't understand why you're spending time with me if you're happy with her." He looked at me, his eyes filled with sadness. "I'm not happy, Anna. Laura and I, we don't have the same connection that you and I have. With you, I can be myself. You make me feel alive." His words tore at my heart. I cared about him, more than I wanted to admit, but I couldn't ignore the reality of the situation. "Michael, I can't be the other woman," I said firmly. "You need to figure out what you want. If you're not happy with Laura, you need to talk to her. But I can't be part of this." He nodded, his expression pained. "I understand, Anna. I just want you to be happy." We said goodbye, and I walked away feeling a mix of sadness and relief. I knew I'd made the right decision, but it didn't make it any easier. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into my work, trying to distract myself from the ache in my chest. I talked to my best friend, Sarah, who'd always been my voice of reason. "Anna, you deserve someone who can be with you fully," she said. "Don't settle for less." Her words stayed with me. I realized I needed to prioritize my own happiness, even if it meant walking away from someone I cared about. A month later, Michael reached out. He wanted to meet and talk. I agreed, and we met at a quiet cafe. He looked tired, like he hadn't been sleeping. "I've thought a lot about what you said," he began. "I've decided to separate from Laura. It's not fair to either of us to stay in a marriage that's not working." I nodded, unsure of what to say. "I care about you, Anna," he continued, "but I understand if you need time. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to do the right thing." I appreciated his honesty, but I knew I needed time to heal. "Thank you for telling me, Michael," I said. "I need to focus on myself right now, but I wish you the best." We parted ways, and as I walked home, I felt a sense of closure. Life is full of difficult choices, but sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that set us free.